Welcome. I'm Eric Hazard, Managing Director of Vested Ventures, and I'm joined by my colleague, Christina Bertinelli, Managing Director at Vested, to talk about event virtualization. Christina, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
What are some of the most common questions that you're receiving from clients right now about the virtualization of events?
Well, I think the common question is should we have our employees traveling to events? Should we be hosting events? What are others doing? I think it is a lot of wait and see to see what the industry is doing as a whole. Things that we are advising to consider is, where is the event? Where are people traveling from the event? Where are the speakers coming from? So understanding, is this a global event? Is this a local event? So a meeting in Midtown New York that has 50 people attending, all from New York City, there's no difference than taking the subway to attend there. But at a larger event that's on a global scale, there is some risk to that. So kind of weighing those options of how we place the importance of employees traveling or not traveling and keeping their safety is really a conversation that's being had every day.
And some clients and companies are considering virtualization of events. What is the advantage of doing a virtual event versus perhaps rescheduling an event or canceling it outright?
So I think the calendar year is very full. So there's a lot of events that happen from a month-to-month basis and seasonal. So if you have an event that happens every April and people are used to coming to every April, all of a sudden you move that to November, you run the risk of losing a lot of your attendees because there might be something else that they're traveling to. So you have that time block, and most of these events have been scheduled for a full calendar year ahead. So the importance of taking that opportunity, if it is a business critical meeting, you want to make sure that you do move it to a virtual event so you have that time that is already scheduled.
And when we think about virtual events, there's a lot of process and technologies to consider. What are some of the things you're advising companies thinking about moving to a virtual event?
Well, I think there is not a simple transfer from an in-person meeting to a virtual meeting. You have to change the way you approach your content. It has to be much more engaged. It has to be more digestible and not as long. An event that takes 6 hours in a day needs to be compressed down to about 2 hours. You take out the breaks, you take out panel discussions because they don't really work on a virtual platform. Think about having more pre-produced content. So whether that's video intros or video segments that help tell stories in a more condensed way is really important. Having someone sit at their desk and participate in a virtual event for 4 hours is a big time, and you want to make sure that they are engaged throughout that. Another thing to really consider about is, how do you engage your audience while they are sitting in their offices? And that can be from group chats, it could be from questions, early submitting questions, or having a phone bridge built so that people can talk back to the conference. Those are all things that you should be considering when moving to a virtual event.
So far we've talked a lot about events in which a company is hosting. What about events that are attached to larger industry events? Is there any other tips you would offer to companies considering rescheduling in those circumstances?
Well, I think we're seeing that firsthand with South by Southwest being canceled. It's this incredibly large conference that has, nobody wants to go into a room with 10,000 people in this day. So I think we're seeing most of those will just be canceled and won't be rescheduled till the next year. I don't see them being pushed out by 3 to 2 months because we don't know what 3 to 2 months is going to be like. So a majority of the clients we've been speaking to, we've heard that they are not allowing their employees to travel to those locations because of the risk of them coming back with what they've been engaged with.
From just a time management perspective, is there a best practice in when a company should consider rescheduling their event? As soon as possible? Should they wait and see? What are you advising?
I think we've seen a lot from the travel industry over the past 2 days, with United and Delta both coming out saying 100% waiver, cancellation and transfer of flights. So I think that is a huge advantage of giving people more time to make a decision whether they're traveling to an event. It'll be interesting to see what the hotel industry does. Right now they are holding people accountable for their reservations and room blocks. So we'll see where that goes. But I think from a form of planning, the sooner you know that you're not going to do something, the sooner you should be communicating it to your attendees. It is just common courtesy at this point. Having something canceled the day before, ideally is not ideal because people are thinking that they're going to go. So,
yep. We've covered a lot of ground today. What would you say is the single most important thing for event organizers to keep in mind right now?
Well, I think there is some reputational risk and management that comes into play here. I think if you are the host, you are taking the responsibility of providing an environment that is, clean, that has the necessity precautions put in place, that will not be transferring any kind of infection. There also is, who are your attendees coming from? If you have a host coming from, level 3 countries, you should not be having them there. And what no company ever wants to hear is that so-and-so contacted the COVID-19 by attending such and such conference. It is a huge reputational risk to think about.
Christina, thank you so much. We've covered a lot of ground today, and we really appreciate your time. For more information, please check out Vesta's YouTube page. Thank you.